It is 22 minutes after 7 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning from Bristol Law Office, Matt Bristol back with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. I heard your Washington team lost to the Cowboys this weekend.
They did, and they should have got crushed.
Uh-huh. Oh, is that so?
Oh, yeah, they were down 24-0 at one point.
Oh, my gosh.
And Washington's one of those teams that they don't give up. Even that's the thing about them. They're full of no talent, right? I mean, they got some talent, but they have no business winning. The guy that's their starting quarterback was not in the league 2 years ago. So not because he was too young, because he wasn't, noticed. But yeah, and they were down 20, and they ended up losing by 7 at the and they almost won it had it not been a couple of plays going the other way. They probably ended up winning that game. So, but it was a weird game. It was just weird.
How was the rest of your weekend?
Oh, not bad. How about yours?
Oh, good. So a little birdie told me you grill.
Oh, you bringing me a gift? Well,
I brought
thank you.
you a little.
Well, thank you very much.
Item there. You bet.
All right. Shall I open it now?
Oh, sure.
All right. Good deal. Well, thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Ooh. Chupacabra. Thank you. I love that. You know what? I've had some chupacabra.
Have you? I haven't tried it yet.
There's a friend of mine who has chupacabra. He got this, and he talks about it all the time.
Awesome.
And I've tried it on some of his ribs. It's pretty good. Well, thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. And there you go. For is that supposed to be a chupacabra on there? I was like, it looks like a mad
a small chupacabra.
looks like a mad chihuahua. Well, thank you. Very cool.
Oh, you bet.
All right, we'll be doing some slapping that on some meat here pretty quickly.
Some grilling, you bet.
Yeah. The stuff I use right now is I can't even say it on the radio because the name is they come with special. They come with chicken, they come with beef, and a couple others. But the last name it rhymes with hit.
It's the one you have to ask for by name of the store because it's not on the shelf.
Special hit, beef hit.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Oh, you bet.
Very cool. So for folks that aren't familiar, I should probably have started there. Matt Bristol joins us once a month from Bristol Law, and we talk just sage, sound legal advice for folks. Obviously, with Matt's specialty, we talk a lot about, financial, family law, the planning there. Most of it's where it's very tied is, you do a lot of family law issues. Yep. However, those family law issues are stemmed from financial issues almost 9 times out of 10.
Quite often, yeah.
And so a lot of times we talk a lot of that, making sure you have your I's dotted and T's crossed and things like that. So that's kind of what we do here. So.
Yeah, I had an interesting case the other day, and so the father of adult daughter calls me and says, you do family law, right? I said, oh, yeah. And he says, well, my daughter needs some help. Can she come see you? I said, oh, sure. So she married a gentleman from Cuba.
Okay.
And
was he a U.S. citizen or was he? Okay.
He's Cuban citizen.
Gotcha.
And they're both artists. And so she's pregnant, having a baby. So she came here to have the baby. And so she's thinking ahead and says, what happens if something happens to her after the baby's born and he's still stuck in Cuba?
The baby's kind of in limbo there, I'm guessing. Huh?
Well, could be, if we don't do something about it. So I thought. And so a parent of a minor can give a power of attorney over the minor, for school, medical, something like that. But it's only good for 6 months by statute and then expires. Well, if something happens to her, she can't renew it.
Right.
So
does he lose custody after 6 months?
Oh, no. But,
or at least the ability to...
Well, she could give somebody here in the States power of attorney over the child, but it'll only be good for 6 months and don't know when husband's getting out of Cuba. Don't know when he's getting the visa. So what we did was a will, and we named a testamentary guardian for the child until such time as dad can either get out of Cuba or the kid can fly to Cuba.
Okay.
But you got to have that testamentary guardian stuff because how else are you going to get a passport?
Yeah, exactly. So how does that work? Does that child have dual citizenship?
It will. I think it has to be applied for.
Okay.
But
by default, it's a U.S. citizen because it was would have been born here, right?
Born here.
And the mother's a U.S.
And the mother's a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm not sure how that goes, but Cuba does allow dual citizenship.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the U.S. does now for the last 15, 20
So
years.
I'm assuming they live in the United States and the husband's trying to.
They've been living in Cuba.
Okay. Was their goal to live here, or was she planning to go back? Is she planning to go back to? I keep saying it.
No.
She didn't go. Nothing's happened to her. They're just planning in the event of. But my brain's already thinking she's gone, but she's fine.
They've been living in Cuba, and they're both different artists with different styles and doing things, and everything's fine.
Okay.
But she just came here with COVID, to have the baby.
And she got worried. Well, what happens when something happens to me? Is this child ever going to get to dad again?
Exactly. Yeah. Or get to dad, or who's going to take care of the child until dad can get a visa and get here.
I'm surprised. Well, I'm surprised because they're married that he doesn't get that expedited or something. I mean,
the process seems to be moving a little more quickly.
Okay.
So one of my questions was, well, if Cuba allows dual citizenship, why not be a Bahamian or Mexican and come on that kind of passport?
Sure.
Apparently it's a hugely complicated process. And
Okay.
the U.S. Embassy, if you're in Cuba and you want a visa, you apply to the U.S. Embassy in Guinea, on the north coast of South America.
Because that's what you do.
Because Puerto Rico's way too close.
Right. Because let's go to the other side of the world to do that. Sure.
Yeah.
They got the shorter lines over there.
Yeah. Go down to the equator.
Yeah.
God,
I know.
dang.
Let's go to the Mars outpost and check out there.
Politics, I swear.
Yeah, but they put just enough logic to make sense for everybody and to justify it. But that's about it.
That's
Interesting.
amazing. Yeah.
So, I guess you could say that's an interesting question that a lot of other people are probably thinking about. I mean, maybe not per se that exact scenario, but stuff that kind of falls in that same vein and same category there.
Well, young adults, they think, well, I don't need a will because I don't have any assets, but they have children. And so you use that will to say who's going to raise those children in the event mom and dad both pass away.
Yeah.
Because those kids are getting Social Security checks when mom and dad pass.
Yeah.
And then the estate of mom and dad goes to the kids anyway. And so now you got the beer swizzling brother-in-law tries to get guardianship of the kids because he's trying to get hold of their money.
Sure.
And you get a will that says who raises those kids instead and takes care of that.
So let's ask this question: the what ifs. Say you have a family and things. Mom, you and the spouse are having the kids. You die in a plane crash or whatever, and the kids are left without parents here, and you don't have that will designating who gets the kids. Does it go to grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunts, whatever? How does that get decided? Is it up to the family, or is it the courts that say, sorry, grandma gets it. I don't care that grandma's the oldest. That's who gets it. I mean, how does that work out?
It's a big fight.
Yeah.
Or potentially a big fight with the beer swizzling brother-in-law or whoever. And you have to go through the court system.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's a process of getting guardianship over the minor children.
Okay.
And so in a guardianship situation, you have to notify all relatives. And so now that's when the fight starts. Versus a will that says if we pass, this is raises the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks later, you get the death certificate, probate the will, letters of testamentary guardianship are entered, and poof, it's done within about a month.
Okay.
The guardianship is going to drag on in a fight for God knows how many months. And now there's nobody in charge of taking the kid to the doctor. Nobody's got legal authority to enroll them in school, enroll them in sports, and it's a big mess.
I mean, I guess, and I'm thinking a lot of what ifs here, and just thinking like how does this scenario say, and this is I'm asking kind of the same thing, but just in a weird scenario. It's say mom and dad go on vacation, the kids are staying with grandma and grandpa while they're on vacation. They get in a plane crash or whatever and die. Immediately, I'm assuming the grandparents would keep custody because that's who the parents delineated as babysitters or whatever there. But does that give them a leg up in terms of, like, say a niece or say a brother or sister come in and say, nah, grandma and grandpa too old, I should take over the kids. Like, is possession 9/10 of the law at this point? How does does CYFD get involved? I mean, what happens at that point if there's a dispute between, say, the parents and a brother or sister that are wanting
Well,
custody?
yeah, there's no presumption of who gets to raise those kids.
Okay.
Doesn't go. It's not like grandma automatically gets presumption of raising the grandchildren, or uncle or aunt. There's no presumption of who gets to raise the kids.
Okay.
So it's going to be up to a judge to decide.
So really, this is why the will is so important. Even to save the headache of even if you think your family's not like that, you never know till it happens. I mean, it's just one of those things. And at the end of the day, your family probably won't act like that. But let me ask you this: you want to leave that up to chance,
Really?
or just guarantee that your kids have a solid foundation if you leave unexpectedly here? Okay, you're going to grandma and grandpa's, or you're going to Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob's, or whatever it is. That at least that pattern's established. There's no confusion, no complication.
Let's have some kind of security for the children.
Yeah.
The other thing to kind of think about that is raising the children is a parenting skills, but probably somebody else should handle the money because that's a different set of skills.
Okay.
So it's good to kind of separate those two jobs.
So in essence, like if you have, say, a set of parents or something that as the actual caretakers of the kids, but then Uncle Bob, who happens to be an accountant, can set up their trust finances and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's a perfectly acceptable and probably a smart way to handle those things.
Exactly. Those are two completely different skill sets.
Gotcha.
Completely different.
So in essence, and here's the difference here, and this is what you need to understand, and I'm sure you can clear this up for anything I'm confusing. So that in essence, whoever is the parental, they're the ones that make all the decisions on medical, the kids, things like that, where the financial guy's not making any of those decisions.
Right.
They don't get to say
Correct.
whether this kid gets put on an incubator or not. They get to say, hey, you can't access this money till 18 or till you get to college or whatever you all have set up for that.
Right. Yeah. You can't blow the money on a new car when he's 14 years old.
Now, does that work vice versa, where the grandparents are the quote unquote guardians of the children? Do they get any say in the finances? Like if someone else is set up to run the trust, do they get any kind of legal access to that, or is that all how you set it up? I guess
It depends on how you set it up.
right. But by default, I'm guessing.
Well, the Social Security money the kids go to the kids.
Gotcha.
And it has to be spent on the kids.
Okay.
So it's not like it can go in savings. It doesn't go into the trust. Social Security Administration wants that money spent on the children and you think about it, well, it's expensive to raise kids. They
Sure.
need clothes, there's overhead, there's the utilities, there's groceries.
In case you haven't noticed, raising a child is very expensive.
Yeah. So whoever's raising the children will get that money.
Sure, the cost of raising stuff,
Yeah.
but as far as setting up the future for that kid, that's going to be the person designated in charge of the
Yeah, so you can say Uncle Bob is in charge of all the rest of the money of the kids until they reach the age of maturity, which is about 40, 45 years old. Yeah.
Or when they get married, whichever comes first. It's some that does it. I mean, I'm 48. Maturity, I don't know. There's a lot of people argue I'm not there yet, but they ain't wrong.
Well, 18 sure ain't the age of maturity.
No. It's just the age of you can get in trouble now.
Yep. But there are some things a will can't do.
Absolutely. Okay.
And so one of the things is it does not necessarily keep you out of probate. Simply having a will is not enough to keep you out of probate.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand that. And then some people think, well, whether there's a will or not, I automatically have to go to probate court. And the answer is, well, no, not necessarily.
Gotcha.
So there's other moving parts. And so I'll sit somebody down and say, well, tell me about the situation. Tell me about the assets. So it's the assets that are going to force a probate typically to occur.
Okay.
So if there's a husband and wife, and then they pass in the plane crash, so that bank is not going to let go of that money unless there's a probate, because they're afraid they're going to end up paying the wrong person and get sued.
And it's hard to really, once that money's out, it's kind of like once the barn door's open, it's hard to put the horse back in. It's no different. Once you pay it out, good luck getting that money back from somebody.
Right.
Especially the federal government, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah. So the bank is going to say, well, if the minor children want the money, then you have to establish a probate. They'll pay it to the estate of deceased mom and dad. And again, minors can't own things, so they're not going to pay it directly to the minors anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So think about that. And that's something, and this is why we have these conversations every month. Obviously not everyone's scenario is going to be just like what we talked about here, but
right.
I will tell you this. If you have kids and you don't have a will in place right now, you're behind the eight ball. I don't care how old your kids are.
Definitely.
If they're newborns, you need to, the moment that child's on this earth, you need to start worrying about and thinking about getting that will put together, because your child is born. Your child is here. You can die at any minute. Obviously, none of us are planning to die tomorrow or in the next couple hours. However, we don't know.
Stuff happens, yeah.
And so the moment that child's here on earth, you need to make sure that in case you slip on the steps and hit your head and die on the way out the hospital, that kid's covered. You know what I mean? That's what you got to plan for.
Yeah, it's so I'll talk to people, and so maybe they have adult children, okay? And so I'll talk to them, and you have life insurance? Oh, yeah. Okay, and who's the beneficiary on your life insurance? Oh, my spouse. Well, who's the second beneficiary? Well, I don't have one. Bingo, you just caused a probate to happen because the life insurance company doesn't know who to pay.
Yeah.
And again, they're afraid of paying the wrong person, getting sued. So they're going to say, go to probate court, open a probate, we'll pay the money to the estate of the deceased person, and then wash our hands of it.
Yeah. If you're looking for people to give that money to, no, but I'll
106.5.
Yeah, right. You're like, well, I have nobody else after this one to give it to. No. Care of Mike Winters. No. What I was thinking of, you have other family. Like my wife and I don't have kids, but we do have nieces and nephews. So we're like, we don't have our own kids. Well, guess what? Then we get split the bill with our nieces and nephews here,
So retirement accounts or have beneficiaries, just like life insurance, but you have to look at how they ask the question for what are called the contingent beneficiaries. So sometimes it'll say your contingent beneficiaries, and it'll have, blank for the nephew's name, and it'll have a blank percentage, blank for the niece's name, blank percentage. Well, what happens if one of them predecease?
Then what?
Then what? The
Yeah.
life insurance company doesn't know what to do with that money. So that deceased nephew's estate is going to have to be probated to receive that money. So we talk about that in interviews and with folks. And I suggest if you can, if they will let you, you say, nephew, niece, or the survivor of them.
Sure. So really the lesson here on that is A, get the will, but B, anytime there's a change in the family, additions, subtractions, you need to make sure your wills, it lines up with that, Now, obviously, if it's Uncle Charlie twice removed, there's no chances in the will, then you ain't going to worry about that.
Right.
But if there's someone that you're in your chain of people you want to make sure to protect it in the event you die tomorrow, if that changes, you need to go in and update that to avoid those probate situations.
Yeah, so that's an update or an amendment. It's called a codicil. So it's less work than a full-blown will. And so I have people come in and say, well, do I need a new will? And I ask them, I don't know. What does it say? And then I'll say, okay, so we'll go through it. It says this, this, and this. Is that still okay? Is that what you want? Well, I want to change who's in charge of the executor. Well, if that's the only change, we just do the amendment, the codicil.
Okay.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You don't have to get a bunch of people back in signing and witnesses and the whole nine.
Well, we have to have witnesses, but we don't have to redo the whole thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, why reinvent the will if you don't have to?
Sure. And then don't forget, remember, we've talked about these in previous discussions when it comes to wills and things. I know we live in an amazing age of technology, but videotaping grandma sitting in the chair telling her that she's cutting all the kids off, but keep her, those do not count as wills. They do not, because there's, put it this way, and you'll understand, if you've never gone and filled out a will before, then you probably don't realize the amount. It's not a quick in and out. There's a lot of people signing. There's a lot. I mean, it's a job to put together a will. You're basically telling somebody, if you die tomorrow, what happens to everything you own? And that's not just something you can whip up off the internet real quick and knock out. I know they try to sell you that kind of stuff, but to do it to actually protect you and know that there's not any loopholes in there that you thought you were covered and weren't. That's why you need to sit down with an attorney and talk about these kind of things.
Talk about those things. We talk about what ifs. What about plan B? What about plan C? And we talk about the horrible thought of, okay, the entire family has now had a gas leak and is gone.
Yeah, what happens now?
And then who gets the stuff? Or a lot of families, they travel as a family on holidays. And what happens if everybody's gone in a single car wreck? Where's your stuff go? What happens to it? There's a lot of stuff on the internet that looks okay, that's not okay. Had a lady bring in a will with blanks that she printed out. And she says, is this going to work for me? And I said, well, New Mexico does not recognize handwritten wills. So if you're filling in the blanks with handwriting,
it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Ain't going to work. Now, Texas will recognize a handwritten will. Okay, but we don't. It's called a holographic will. So it's just little things like that.
Sure.
You could come talk to us. I had somebody say, well, are there forms I can use for probate? And the answer is, yeah. The probate court has forms.
Just like the DMV.
We help people fill them out all the time. Yeah. 'Cause attorneys are expensive.
Sure.
So we work with people on, fill this out, the next step, come back kind of thing. So if you have a car, do you die owning motor vehicles? Do you have to probate the will now?
I don't know. I really don't. I'm guessing no, but maybe you do.
Well, the DMV has an affidavit of successor and interest.
Okay.
And you go down there with a death certificate and you fill out the affidavit that says, I am the only person entitled to receive the cars of the deceased. And poof, they change the title.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Very easy. Very nice. Yeah.
Or if you owe money on it, just stop paying. They'll come get it. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Come and get it.
After a while, they'll come pick it up.
So if you inherit that motor vehicle with debt, do you have to pay the debt?
Well, I imagine that falls under all the debts there that the person incurred before they died. It goes through well, do you want to, I'm guessing if you have the assets, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, depending on how you got it set up, I'm thinking.
Well, we do not inherit debt.
Yeah.
Okay, now, so not for like 200 years or 150 years. You do not inherit debt from the deceased person.
But you don't get to keep the car, right?
If you inherit the car, it is subject to the debt owed on it.
So if you say you get the car, then you inherit the debt.
You do not inherit the debt. You inherit the asset subject to the debt that's on it.
But if you want to keep the asset, you got to pay the debt.
Yes.
So basically, you say you can walk away from it or pay the debt. Either way, it's your choice, and you're not going to be held responsible unless obviously you say you're going to pay the debt and don't. Then they're going to get you. But
because you never signed the promissory note for the car,
gotcha.
You're not personally liable on that debt.
So let me ask this question: do they have to run credit and all that on you? Is it by default? Like, what if your credit score's 2, and now you just inherited a car with a $500 car payment? Does that come into play here? Subject to you being approval on the credit that the person
Nope. Nope.
Interesting.
Just make the car payments.
Okay. Now you're going to jack up your credit if you say, "Yeah, I take it," and then you default on the loan.
Well, no, because the loan was made to somebody else's social security number.
But even if you pick it up, the credit doesn't follow you.
I could pay your car loan. They don't care who pays it.
So by that standard, if I don't pay it, it's not going to hurt you either.
If you don't pay, it's not going to hurt your credit score.
Really? I feel like that's a weird loophole there. That should be like I think once you assume the vehicle and the debt, that falls on you.
Well, if you don't do it in writing, and they don't require an assumption in writing,
there is no lease paperwork or loan paperwork anywhere. So
no, but the scoundrel of the situation is the lender won't talk to you about the loan either because it's not your loan.
Because if you owe money
if you call them up and ask what's the payoff, they're not going to tell you it's not your loan.
Huh. I'd be like, well, if you want the check, you better tell me. Because I'm about to pay it off right now. So
So would they even let you change the address to which the bill goes?
I don't
know. They may not talk to you because it's not your loan.
I can't imagine, though, if you didn't walk into the financial institution where that lien was with a suitcase of cash and said, I'm paying off the loan, they wouldn't work with you on that.
It's difficult because it's not your loan.
Yeah.
And especially with houses. We run into that with houses all the time.
Well, let me ask this. Like, say you want to play Good Samaritan and walk into a bank and say, I got $1 million. I'm going to just walk in here and pay off some mortgages. Can they do that? Or is it basically just, here's a thing of cash, spread it? I mean, how does...
If you knew the person's account number.
Okay. That's the only way. You just can't randomly walk in a bank and say, I got $10 million. I'm paying everybody's mortgage off in your bank, or whatever.
Because you don't know the account number.
Okay.
And
that wouldn't cover it, by the way.
And they're not going to give you the account number.
Okay.
So if I walk into whoever your mortgage lender is and I say, here, I want to make a mortgage payment, and here's the account number, they'll take it.
Okay.
They don't care who makes the payment.
Gotcha.
But if I ask, I want to pay off, I want to make a payment on Mike's behalf. He's in the hospital. He's been in a terrible accident. Mr. Banker, can you give me Mike's account number? They're going to say, nope.
Okay. So if you want to play Good Samaritan that way, you're literally going to have to go and collect account numbers and then walk into the bank and say, here's 10 account numbers. Here's a check. Pay these all off.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I ask Kim, hey, Kim, let me help out. I know Mike's in the hospital.
I got you.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to play, it's Christmas season. I don't know, everyone loves to do stuff for the internet. I was like, maybe they'll do some real good and walk in there and pay off a couple mortgages.
But we see that with mortgages all the time.
Sure.
Of, elderly dad's passed away and the kids want to, how much is still owed on the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the mortgage lender doesn't talk to him. So we can talk to you. It's not your loan.
Sure.
Go to probate court, be appointed as the executor of dad's estate, then we'll get to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, that's the legalities. Now, if you find out information any other way, it's just because, small town, hometown, so-and-so. Legalities there, it's not happening, but,
Well, it depends on how you ask the question.
Sure.
So sometimes a savings account, you can name a beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have Mike's savings account, POD, payable on death, Sean. Okay, so you name a beneficiary, that savings account passes outside the will. And Sean can't touch the money until he's got a death certificate.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike passes away, and I call up the bank and say, hey, Mike's got a savings account with your bank? Yep. Who's the beneficiary? Can't tell you. So that's why they're going to stall you. Well, I can't tell you the beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, oh, okay, yeah, I understand. You can't tell me I'm not the executor of the estate. No problems. Who should I have call you next? Have Sean call us. Thank you very much.
So again, it's how you present it.
That's how you present it.
Sure.
Got to ask the right question.
Sure. Well, and that's, to be honest, that's your whole job. I mean, as a lawyer, granted, I know watching legal dramas on TV and movies doesn't qualify as expert opinion on that, but in some cases, you do get a flavor of what the intent is of what they're trying to do. And what I mean by that, they over-dramatize it for TV, but in essence, there are ways in real life, in the courtroom and everything else, it's, when they talk about rephrasing and things like that, and they overrule questions, that's all that is you're trying to get to the same purpose through the legal route versus taking the shortcut, and they're just calling you on that. And that's in essence what you're talking about there in that phone call too.
Learning how to ask the question.
Sure. It's, if you ask it in the right way, which is really 9 times out of 10, kind of the lawyer side of things is, all right, how do we get what we want without breaking any laws or circumnavigating a loophole?
Right. So because I know how the system works, I know how to phrase that question of, oh, okay, well then who should I have call you next?
Sure.
Because I know the bank won't talk to you.
Think of it in life like when you go in to buy something or say you want something from someone, you go in nice and everything else to try to get what you want rather than you coming in being demanding. It's no different than that, except for instead of doing it in a classy way, you're doing it in a legal way, if that makes sense.
Well, and I have people and they have financial accounts. It's when, some of the advisors around town, and I tell them they need to set that account up so it transfers on death to whoever. And then they'll ask me, well, can I do it this way? And I'll tell them, well, go ask your financial advisor.
Yeah.
He's in charge of that account. He can answer that question. And don't say, I want the account to say X. You say, I want to accomplish Y. How do
Okay.
I get there? Because I get people who come in and say, well, I want a trust. Okay, why? Well, my neighbor said I need one. And what law school did your neighbor go to?
Yeah.
So I tell them, don't tell me what you want.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
And then I'll tell you how to get there.
Yeah, if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, that's not an answer.
That's right. That's right.
I just saw the time. We need to probably wrap a little bit
All
up
right.
here. Do we got some time for some
Sure.
some fact or fiction here?
So,
And some-
directing your attention, that's a law phrase, directed your attention to
All
the
right.
New Testament. Jesus said, I'm the Alpha and the Omega.
okay.
So that's reference to the Greek alphabet. So obviously his audience was Greek. So Alpha is the first letter of the alphabet. The ending is the Omega. Well, in the Greek alphabet, they had 2-letter O's.
Okay.
They have the big O and a little O.
All right.
So you get the mega O, or the Omega, and the micro O, or the Omicron.
Oh, okay.
So the Omicron variant of the virus nowadays, that's Greek for little O, micro O.
So
Omicron.
we should not be worried about Omicron because it's a little one. I'm just kidding.
It's not the big one. It's not the big one.
But now, if you're wondering where they pull these names out, now you know where. You know,
Yeah.
there's some science and some mythology and everything. to it.
They're going through the Greek alphabet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. If you have any questions, I know a lot of people aren't thinking as much about lawyer stuff during the holidays, although it's probably actually a more busy time in some aspects. That's when family sits together and has these conversations sometimes. So if you need some sound legal advice, if you need any help, as far as family law, everything like that, even the unfun stuff like the divorces and all that,
Come talk to us.
Matt can handle that. But if you really are, and this is where I'm hoping you really pick Matt's brain, because I don't want couples to get divorced. So you're not coming to see Matt for divorces.
Hopefully
you're
not.
coming to see Matt for estate planning. Hey, I want to set up a trust for my kids. I want to make sure my will's good to go. I want to do the things that are creating a foundation for my family's future.
Absolutely.
And that's where Matt can come and help you out.
BristolLawOffice.com
Yeah.
or 625-5284.
Yeah. So give him a call or get online there and let him set up a free consultation to sit down and talk with you about, what your problem is, and then go from there. Whether, you know what, Matt's going to be like, hey, you do a couple things, you're good to go, or nope, let's sit down and let's do some lawyer stuff on this.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And thank you again for the Chupacabra rub.
You're welcome.
I will be putting that on many things, even when my wife tells me to stop doing it. Thank you. We'll see you in 2022.
Yes, we will. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Take care.
You too.
It is 7:55. Let's go ahead